supportive. They wish for me to succeed in life. And I think the problem is because I live on a farm and they kind of expect me to help them all the time. But that, however, kind of makes me unhappy.
Okay.
Um, and it's
Why does
essentially
it why does it make you unhappy? Because you've addressed the emotion, but you haven't addressed the need for
because I feel like it's not fulfilling my purpose. I just don't find it.
when you feel like when you add I'll explain. When you say like after feel, you're not describing the emotion, you're describing just what is happening. So I think what I think
Then
what the emotion that you are feeling is you are feeling sad.
frustration, maybe sadness.
Yeah, you're feeling sad because you want to receive support for the things that you want to do, and you are unable to do those things given the fact that you have to work a lot on the farm. Is that accurate?
I mean, mostly yes, but
Where is the
it,
inaccuracy? Like, explain to me.
so can you like say it again so I can?
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you is that you have a feeling of sadness inside, and the reason why you feel sad is because you have something that is important to you that you want to do, and you are unable to do it as much as you would like to because of the fact that you have to work at the farm.
Yeah.
Oh,
But then
okay.
it gets like trickier because I use school as an excuse because they prioritize school and education, and I kind of use it as an excuse to get away from it. But then I feel like guilty because I'm not helping them,
Okay.
even though I could be.
Okay, so let me just interrupt there. I will interrupt it a couple times, but it
Yeah.
won't be because I'm stopping you. Like I am actively listening to what you're saying. So when I interrupt, I'm more so just here to clarify what is the need and what is the emotion that you're feeling. What I'm hearing from you when you say that you use school as an excuse is that you're afraid that if you are being honest with your parents, that they will punish you, and therefore you use school as an excuse so that you
Not
can avoid the punishment.
not necessarily punish. I think I would just hurt their feelings because they think what they're doing is not important to me.
Right. So you're afraid of hurting them.
Yeah.
Okay. You're afraid of hurting them, and you are afraid that they will be hurt in the process, and and the reason why you feel that way or why you think that will happen is because either subconsciously or consciously you're aware that they have a need for you helping them out with the farm.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we've addressed a couple of things here. One of the first needs that we have with you, your needs, is that you need to know that your parents support you in your endeavors and that they support you for the right reasons. So you want them to support you wholeheartedly, and you want them to let you pursue, or rather you want them to help you or otherwise just allow you to pursue the things that you want to do without having to resort to doing things like hiding what you're actually doing from them.
Yes.
Because you also, on top of that, have a need for being honest with your parents. And if you can't be honest with your parents, then you feel sad.
Yes.
As yes. Okay. So you have a need for being able to do what you want to do, to pursue your dreams, but also a need for trust. Those are two needs
And
that we've identified.
and basically let them understand that because they're like older, I'm the youngest child, and I feel like they don't understand the magnitude that even this kind of work can be like appreciated. It's not like a waste of time, or as they would say.
Yeah. So you feel hurt by them when they tell you that whatever it is that you're doing is a waste of time.
Yes.
Yes. And that means you have a need for an understanding from them to see that what you are doing is worth the time. And what I would like to know is, what are the reasons that you want them to see it that way? What, like, if you think about it from their shoes, how would you want them to reason themselves towards doing what it is that you want them to do? Um, if you think about it.
Like all I would like to have is that they like acknowledge that even like let's say playing league is like a skill. They would just say it's a like for right now they would feel like it's a waste of time. It's useless. You can get money with it and stuff like that.
Right.
So I feel like they're you know we've never really been that rich of a family. Like we've always been middle class or lower middle class, and I feel like they have this mentality that you always need to just work, 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 or else you're gonna eventually like go bankrupt or something like that.
So let's actually turn, now that we've addressed, do you feel that your needs have all been heard? Have I like heard all your needs and how you feel? Or do you feel like there's something else you would like to go over? Because if not, then we can actually turn our heads towards what the needs of your parents are.
No, I think this is all for me.
Okay, so you feel like all your needs have been heard so far.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, let's actually turn our heads over to what we can assume at least that they feel. So right from the get-go, I think that they have a need for safety, not only for themselves but also for you, because they worry that if you pursue this, that you might end up in a position where you are poor and you are unable to get out of that situation. So they are worried for your safety in doing this because they feel it's a risk if you don't make money from it.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think that uh, they are either worried or frustrated that in you in you doing this, that you don't understand them and that their connection with you is slowly but surely eroding away. uh, and I think you mentioned this before, your other siblings have already left the farm, and so they are worried that if you do the
Yeah,
same.
it's actually the thing is we like me and my brother are all still here, and he's gonna take over. So that's like I think um so yeah, he's gonna when they get older, they're just gonna let the farm to him, right? So that's the thing. So it's not really about the worry of nobody taking over once they get old. Just to
Okay.
clarify.
Okay, so what in that case do you think it is? Because when we come to, let's say you were to come to your parents and you were to tell them, I want to do this. I have a need for being able to pursue the dreams that I have, despite you maybe thinking that they are not useful, or that they are a waste of time. If you were to approach them with that, why do you think, what need do you think that they have that wouldn't be met if you did that?
Um, I feel like they have their um like they expect me to finish the college, like go maybe masters, like the rest of the family did so far.
That is a strategy, that's not a need. That is what they want, that is a action, it's not the need itself. So with the education in mind, since you mentioned that, I think that also goes back to the point of that they worry for your safety. They want you to be in a position that is a lot better than their position. They want you to have the ability to afford things and to live comfortably. They don't want you to end up in poverty in this case.
Yeah.
But anything else you can think of? What, for example, specifically with the farm, if related to the farm, what do you think? Why do you think that they want you to work so hard at the farm?
Well, the thing is that they're like working a lot, and they just like would really like help whenever they can get.
So,
Um,
and why do you? Why? So, what is the need there behind that?
well, getting enough money for the family, and because of that, you need like they need to work a lot. But mm,
So the need in this case is to protect the family by providing the financial means to support the family through the farm. So like the reason why they want you to work on the farm is so that they can actually provide for you and for the entire family, even themselves included.
yes,
And that if you don't put in the work, then obviously that will lead to the consequence of the family suffering in financially.
yeah,
Okay. So they are probably in that case, I at least guess, and again, what I want to clarify here is that none of these guesses that I have may be fully accurate because I, first of all, I'm not sitting with your parents here in the same room or in the same call, so I can't really speak accurately over what they actually think or what they need, truly. But I can at least guess from what you are telling me what their needs might be and what they are feeling. And if I were in their position, I think I would be scared that if my son isn't working on the farm, then what is going to happen to the family? Like there's a fear of the unknown, a fear of what might happen, what might unfurl if you aren't there to provide help. And that's what I would be scared of if I was in, for example, your dad's position.
yeah,
Does that sound accurate?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Go
one
ahead.
another thing just popped into my mind. Like I did, however, once already opened this conversation with them, like about what I'm trying to do, and it didn't feel like they were really against it, but it just didn't feel like they were actually getting what I'm saying, if you know what I mean. So
So
I don't,
in
I don't know, like they didn't, if it was actually my dad. I don't know if he was like not objecting me directly, but I feel like he was just thinking to himself, yeah, that's not gonna work or something like that. Because
in that case, what happened was that you saw that he was reacting in a certain way, but you didn't actually listen to his emotion. And what I mean by this is that even in silence, you can still look at body language and other things. You can perceive emotions but beneath those things. So when you tell me that situation that he is like sitting there thinking about it and it seems like he is questioning whether it will work, it sounds to me like there was a feel of worry inside of him. Now, obviously, you've mentioned to me that he is the type, he comes from a culture where you don't really openly talk about your feelings that much,
yeah,
but you can still express an understanding through like communicating with him about it. And that can also help him actually listen more closely to how he's actually feeling. Because through you giving him empathy, he can then actually realize himself what he is feeling.
um,
Does that make sense?
yeah,
So now let's actually think about an action plan. So we've addressed your needs, we've addressed the needs of the other party, and now we need to think about okay, how do we approach this? And the way you approach this is through similarly how I've done right now. So what I did is I didn't exactly listen to what you were saying. I was trying to translate what it is that you were saying into needs and feelings. So you notice how I interrupted you and I told you, yeah, is it because you feel afraid of da 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 da, etc.
Yeah.
That is a way for me to actually listen empathically to how it is, how you are feeling and what it is that you actually want. So when you tell me that they want you to go to college to get an education, to me that more so sounds like they are scared that if you don't finish your education, then you will end up in a bad situation. You see how that kind of translation process works? Like
Yeah.
you can interpret things in that way, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a great book on this, and I can send this to both of you actually. It's called Nonviolent Communication, and it's really, really helpful for resolving conflicts in a very non-violent manner, as the name of the book suggests.
Okay.
I'll do that afterwards. But in any case, I think that's where you want to start. And you want to first begin by actually, whenever you find the chance, whenever it seems appropriate, find the chance to simply just ask them and try to listen to their feelings and needs rather than actually what they are saying. So don't try to take it literally. Listen to like what is going on between the lines.
Okay.
So if you hear, for example, that if you ask them, "Hey, I want to do this right now. I want to spend some time to practice like on this skill that I want to work on," and then they tell you no, and then what you instead do, instead of taking the no literally, you instead listen to what is the emotion behind that, and you might then say, "Are you frustrated that I I'm doing this because you feel like I don't care about what you want?" That would be like a question you could ask. And if they then say, "Yes, I feel like you are not listening to what we want and you're just doing whatever it is that you want to do without caring about us," then you can continue and be like, "You're worried that I if I just continue to do what I want, that you will suffer as a result and that our connection will falter." And if it continues, eventually you bottom out at some point, and they're basically all the needs have been listened to and heard. And at that point, you can actually start to express in an empathic way how you feel and what your needs are. So you can start by expressing your needs and feelings first. Sometimes you can with certain people or in certain situations, if they are already ready to listen. But if they're not ready to listen to your needs, that means that you need to actually inject some empathy into the conversation and actually listen to them first. So, in order for you to have your needs met, you need to first listen to their needs and feelings so that they can then realize that you understand them on an emotional level, and then they are more willing to listen to what it is that you want. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So I hope that all like clears it out. And again, whenever you feel anger or a certain emotion, it is important that you don't express it as a judgment or punishment or criticism. Because if, let's say, we take the example of you having to work on the farm, but you would rather want to spend time actually improving on your skills, you could say, you could express your need as a judgment and say, "You never listened to me, and uh, you guys are horrible parents." Like that would be like a very judgmental way of expressing your actual need. And but that wouldn't actually translate over to them. They would just interpret that as a judgment, and then they would also judge you back. And that would just escalate the conflict. And then you get nowhere. you and you could also explain it as a criticism. You can say, you are not able to listen to me as much as I would like. That's still a criticism or even a judgment, and it comes from a need that you have, but you're not actually expressing your need. You're not actually expressing that you feel sad and also anxious because you are not able to improve on the things that you want to improve on. And you also maybe feel impatient because if if like it takes too long, like if too much time is taken away from it is what it is that you want to do, then maybe you will lose opportunities along the way to get ahead in whatever it is that you're doing. So you need to always remember that whenever like a judgmental thought pops up, or whenever anger or frustration pops up, usually the source of that comes from a unmet need, and you need to actually tune into yourself. So you need to actually start sometimes not even listening to them, you need to actually start listening to yourself sometimes. Because if you can't be empathetic towards yourself, then you can't be empathetic towards other people. So you have to first actually listen to yourself. What are your needs? What are you feeling right now? Why are you feeling this anger? Why are you feeling this way? And why do you want to say these hurtful things? And then you just want to sit with that and listen to yourself without judging yourself for it. Again, you want to listen to your needs and how you feel. So the anger may be because of frustration and sadness. It may be because of other underlying emotions, which manifest as anger. I hope that all makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the process is essentially, if you can't listen because you have too much pain going on inside of you, you need to first listen to yourself. Afterwards, you need to start by listening to the other person. Then, only after you feel that they have been heard, only after they feel that they've been heard and understood, then you can actually proceed to empathically show your needs, explain your needs to them, and then listen to their response to that.
Okay. So if I understood correctly,
Yeah.
instead of like fighting over, arguing, let's say my approach would be that I ask them what they need me to help them with, and they explain what they need to help with, and then I eventually like bring
It's
up
not
my needs.
necessarily that. It's not necessarily that.
Okay.
It's more so that a hypothetical conversation would be that you express to them what it is that you truly want to do right now. So let's say like a Saturday morning, you were to tell them that, hey, I want to play League right now to like improve my skills or whatever it is that you want to do. Then they could maybe respond to that in a certain way, but what you need to do is you need to listen not to their exact response, but actually the emotions going on behind that, what it is that they're saying. And you need to also listen to the need as well. So it's not necessarily that you go up to them and just ask straight up, just what are your needs?
Okay.
It's that you listen, and you listen really intensely, and even take some time to actually like think it through your head what their needs and emotions might actually be. Because this is a very difficult thing to actually reprogram ourselves to do. Because normally we've been taught through punishment and through judgment and criticism that we need to think in a very like judgmental and critical way. But we need to realize that conflict isn't resolved through punishment and criticism. It is resolved through listening to each other and trying to meet each other's needs, or at the very least empathically say no to what the other party's needs are in a way that they also understand.
Okay.
So it's not about like directly asking, it's about actually listening. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So you will find that it's very difficult at first because they will say things that are very ignorant, potentially. They're maybe ignorant to your needs, they're ignorant to what you want to do. But what you need to remember is that they do not currently understand your needs, and you need to first listen to them. You need to listen to why it is that they're not uh, acknowledging your needs. And usually the source of that is pain and hurt and the other emotions.
Fear, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the end, they are humans and they will feel certain ways. And you need to acknowledge that that is a fact.
Yeah.
That's just how we are as humans. But yeah, that would be the action plan for now. So try to, I will send you the book. You can read it. You can have a look. It will explain in a lot more detail what I've just described. But I think, uh, I hope at least that this has given you some understanding for what could be a solution for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any questions, or uh, do you feel like it's resolved at this point?
Um, yeah, I just, like you said, I've not been talking to them a lot. Like,
Yeah,
and for starters, just communication and then adding in what you just told me, I think it would be massive improvement.
yeah. Do you feel? Do you have a need to be able to communicate with your parents openly? Is that also something that you want to do? You actually want to talk to them, but it is, the only reason you don't talk to them is because of the fact that your needs aren't being met. Is that true?
Like, sometimes we just, what ends up happening is that they, we don't really understand each other on a, like, besides just the small talk, it feels like we don't really are like on the same wavelength.
Yeah,
So like we didn't understand each other. At least, I mean, I feel like I understand them, but and I know what they would, not exactly, but what I mean is that they feel like whatever I'm doing is completely alien to them, and
yeah.
does happen happens
The
what happens.
the 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 state of being that you're expressing is that you intellectually understand them, but there isn't actually a connection between you and your parents.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what that means is you need to actively work towards building that connection and building that trust for each other to listen to each other's needs and feelings. Okay. So is there anything else or is that all?
I think that's all.
Okay, awesome. In that case, Rex, let's start by like first I want you to explain sort of your situation. So we've already discussed this previously, but I'd just like to reiterate uh, what it is that you've been going through.
So I'd say that the communication error or unmet need is mostly an internal conflict,
Yes.
uh, where I feel like I have a lot of different needs that often don't work together,
Right.
and it is difficult for me to resolve which ones to, you know, accept and which ones to move on from.
If I told you that all of those different needs can be met, would you believe me?
I think I would, but I currently like
It's difficult to
don't
see,
see
but
how to get there.
okay, okay. Let's in that case first open up by talking about the frustration issues that you've been having.
Sure.
Frustration with like performance and whatever. So explain to me like what goes like what happens and like what do you feel?
So I guess a typical league session for me, I I planned it out. I made sure I had time. I'm excited to play some League. I start off with my drills and warm-ups, and I feel pretty good. Start playing the game. Perhaps I'm playing really well, play perhaps not so well, but I'm still in a pretty positive mood because I went into it, with a really positive
Yeah.
attitude. And then I make some silly mistake and I die. And then, you know, game gets more difficult, etc.
Yeah.
And I just get really frustrated and my mood completely changes and I feel awful for the rest of the game. And then I don't want to play anymore. Session over.
Yeah. So, okay. What does you have expressed the feeling for the frustration, but what
Yeah.
is the need? Because I think from our previous conversations, it seems to me that the need is for you to perform at a certain level. And my question is, why is it that you want to do that? Like, what is the need behind wanting to perform better? What is it that you're seeking?
Well, I think I haven't been able to completely focus on just improvement. I think there is still a need for me to win games and climb.
And why do you want that? Like, what is the need behind wanting to win games and climb? Like, what is it? What is the end goal?
Uh, well,
To elaborate further, what I mean behind that want, I think there's another, like, there's a deeper need that you are trying to fulfill. Like, there's an ultimate need that we are trying to fulfill with certain actions. So what you've described climbing and winning games. Those are actions. Those are events.
yes,
Those are not necessarily needs. So what I want to try to do is I want to try to
right.
pinpoint what the actual need is that you're trying to fulfill.
So I think it has to do with just my attitude towards League. I'm very passionate about the game. Uh, a lot of other high level needs, they sound cool to me, but they're not necessarily like an intimate passion that I have for the thing. It's just cool things that I want to try. But League is like I've already tried it enough to know that it's something that I want to keep doing.
In
Uh,
that case, can you explain? Uh, I understand that, and that's good. I think you've explained
yes,
an emotion, a part of it, which is that the reason you maybe have these certain needs is because of, um, or rather, the passion maybe stems from the needs that are being met by the game. So the game potentially fulfills certain needs, and for those reasons, you feel very passionate about it. Does that make sense?
yes.
Yes. So I would like to look into that. What are those needs, those particular needs that are being met by the game, and are they related to the frustration that you sometimes feel?
I think a certain aspect is, a demonstration of skill. That
To
the
be
game
good
is
at
a good
something.
place to be good at something and show that you're good at something.
Yeah. And why is it that you want to be good at something? Is it because is it just simply for itself sake, or is it because you want to be good at something so that you can show other people, or to trust in yourself that you can be good at something? Like, where is
I think
this?
it's
Go ahead.
I
Go
think
ahead.
it's both. I
Okay.
think from one perspective, the rank is like a trophy. So,
Yeah.
I want to put a trophy on the wall to commemorate my level of achievement in League of Legends. But then at the same time, the trophy isn't on the wall just for me. The trophy is for someone to ask about and for me to tell the story.
And why is it that you seek that? Is it if I were to guess, and I'm going to make a few guesses, and they might be inaccurate, so feel free to correct if I'm wrong. Is it that you want to be good at something so that you can be accepted by other people or feel acknowledged by other people?
Yeah, I think there is some acceptance part of it.
And why is that a need that you have? Is it because you haven't received that kind of treatment before in the past? Does it stem from a lack, or is it just there?
I think I think so. It might have something to do with um things my father has expressed with regards to me playing a lot of League.
Is it that you want him to acknowledge you?
Yeah, I think to an extent.
Do you feel
It's
like
not just
there's,
him, but it's
yeah,
definitely part of it.
so you feel like he hasn't really acknowledged what you are doing, and I guess that's a similarity between your story and Strax's story, that um, your fathers aren't maybe supportive of what it is that you're doing, and that doesn't
Yeah, that
obviously that doesn't feel good, and you would have obviously liked to have that acknowledgement and support.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had very similar types of conversations where, I'm wasting my time on a useless thing is the general message.
And what do you think that your father's need is? Is it similar to Strax, where he maybe worries that you are not going to be successful in life, or that you're going to be worse off because you're doing this, and he doesn't want to see you end up in that position?
Yeah, I think that would be accurate.
Yeah. So he isn't acknowledging or supporting you, but the reason he doesn't do that is because he actually cares a lot about you, and he wants you to be in a good place in life. So the source stems from him caring about you. It's just that it is expressed in a very judgmental and criticizing way.
Yeah.
Once again, it goes back to what I was talking about before. When you take it literally, it will feel hurtful and you will feel pain inside when you hear it. But if you read between the lines, you can actually discern and infer from what they're saying that actually it is because of something else that they say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this interaction hasn't really come up recently since you know, I'm not at risk of not being successful basically. Like I already did the thing. I already met his needs basically. At least it
But
feels
have
like it.
you actually listened to his needs? That's the thing. You can meet
No.
someone's needs, but the conflict may still have gone unresolved because you haven't actually addressed it to him directly. I think that's where a lot of healing and bonding needs to be done in order to repair those like burned bridges. Because that trauma potentially is still lingering on. And I feel like it is, because even though you are technically well off, even though technically you have met his needs by being okay where you are right now, he maybe still doesn't feel understood by you. And you maybe don't feel understood by him yet. So that's still a thing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I guess so.
So I sense that you are unsure if that is the thing that you should be doing right now. I sense that you are unsure that what I'm saying it would be a good use of your time. Is that true?
Yeah, it's not really like I think that's probably accurate that there's still more to talk about with my father about it. But I also feel like
Do you feel scared that if you were to initiate contact with him, that he would still be in a judgmental state and he would judge you still?
I just feel like I have taken too much ownership of the need to be good at League. Like,
What do you mean? You can feel free to take your time. You can. It's not something that's in a rush.
like the service level, like reasoning why he would point out League being a waste of time is that like in order for it there to be any monetary value from me doing it, like he would be looking at it from a very sports perspective. Like he can acknowledge that esports is a valid career. He doesn't have an issue with that. Um, but he has an issue with the percentage of people that play video games becoming e-athletes, which is like, you know,
Is that something that
thousands
so
of a percent. So basically, it is extremely unlikely that I will ever have any remote chance of getting anything out of playing League. That's how
and
he looks at it.
okay, so that's good that you mentioned that. First thing to understand though is what are your needs that like what is it that you are looking for with League? Are you looking to become an esports athlete or are you simply just playing the game because it's enjoyable and it's a very nice hobby to have? Like where is it
Uh,
that your motivation lies with League?
there is a dream of mine to get to that point, like that, even potentially be a professional League player. I think that dream exists and is very strong, but at the same time,
What
it's
is it
not very
that
realistic.
right?
So I'm not necessarily die hard attached to this dream, but it is still very strong.
And is it because of so I'll need to like ask a few questions because I think this is a very multi-dimensional situation. So
Right.
is the reason why it is not as strong because of the aforementioned criticism and judgment that you've received throughout your life in regards to this choice or this dream that you have? Is it because of that judgment that you are less attached to it?
I think that maybe I'm uncertain about that.
You're uncertain. Okay. So what I mean by that is that either it is that you grew out of it somewhat, or it is that because of external pressure from the outside, you've become less and less inclined to do it. So you're less emotionally committed towards actually fulfilling that wish that you have. Not necessarily because of yourself, but because of external pressure. Again, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and the people you
Right.
spend the most time with tend to affect you and your choices and your beliefs and values. So
Right.
I would need you to elaborate further on that before I could actually continue forward, because that's actually really important.
So let me take it from this perspective. So obviously, I went through with getting a degree at school, and I have a career, and it's similar to what my dad does even. Uh, so now like, and I enjoy the work. So, and on my time is spent with interacting with people at the place that I work. So now it's like, so that has tempered my desire to pursue that dream of League because, well, now
You feel
like
comfortable
become
in
an
this.
important,
Yeah.
I've become an important part of that workplace. You know, the work that I do is highly valued there, and it would negatively affect their ability to succeed as a company if I change paths.
Now, it's important here to address the fact that sometimes our needs may not be fully in line with the needs of others. And sometimes that can be the case. And in those situations, it is important to, albeit very empathically, try to address your own needs and listen to yourself. So, what I would like you to do is sort of step outside of yourself for a moment and just think, what are your actual needs that are not currently being met? Because although it is true what you say, it may negatively impact in some other area, like some, you know, the company or whatever.
So,
Maybe there's another path. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying that it's
yeah,
worth thinking about.
no, I have a thought on this.
Okay.
So like looking at this on a more existential level, I suppose, is I feel like I still haven't found the thing, if you know what I mean by that.
Sure. So you don't feel like you found something that is truly, um,
Yes.
like it's not. You don't feel a burning passion for any particular thing yet.
Yes. Although the closest thing to that is League.
Now, why do you
And
think that is true? Like, what is the nature of that? The reason I ask is because a game can be very enticing because it's actually built. Like the companies that make games, they build the games in such a way that they are very addictive to play. They're very, like, there are many reasons why you might want to play it for, like, enjoyability, for other things. It might satisfy some like desires that you have to be good, to be respected, or other things.
so I don't think it's just because of games being designed to be
Sure.
fun.
Okay. That's fair.
Uh, I can give some support for that
Sure.
if you want.
Sure. That's fine. That's fine.
Uh,
Go ahead.
so I did play a sport, an actual sport. I played ice hockey for many years. Um, and when I actually got to play, I really enjoyed playing ice hockey. Like I could easily reach a state of flow while doing it, and it was ridiculously fun. But I never really felt like I had the opportunity to fully explore that uh, because I was just. I mean, there's a very physical component to ice hockey, and I just was not gifted in the way that I needed to be for ice hockey to actually take me in, basically. Like for like,
Is that something that is actually true, or is that a
I
belief that
don't
you
think
hold?
it's completely true. I think it's partly because I just didn't understand how important it was for me to practice on my own time or do physical exercise to prepare myself for the sport. I just didn't realize that was important.
Yeah.
Didn't even know I needed to do that. Um,
It
so
sounds
I
to
think
me.
that's part of it.
It sounds to me, in some way, I have a sort of a gut feeling that it is in fact the belief in yourself and the way you treat yourself that is ultimately hindering you from being able to fully accept yourself and to approach whatever it is that you want to do with
Yeah,
your entire being.
I think that could be fair. Um,
The reason why I say that, and I want to make this clear, is because it's very important. The way that we usually view success is that success precedes happiness, as in we need to be successful and then we can be happy, or we need to have this car then we can be happy. We need to have this
the other way,
house. Yeah,
it's the other way around, isn't it?
yes, it is the other way around, because when you look at people who are successful but then they lose it all and then they build it back up, the reason why they're able to do that is not based on a fluke. It's because they had the right foundation mentally, they had the right foundation in life, which allowed them to actually be able to pick up again and become successful once more.
Right.
So the success itself is just a emergent property from the foundation itself of who you
Yeah.
are and how you believe in yourself and the way you talk to yourself, your mental health,
So,
basically.
so as I was, progressing through ice hockey, um, I had puberty extremely late. So I was tiny, and coaches did not want me to play because they didn't want me to get hurt. So like, they didn't even look at my performance because they just didn't want me to get hurt. And I think that severely damaged my, you know, passion to actually improve myself in the sport. And for most of my
If
hockey career, I basically didn't get to play because I got sidelined because of being small, and then lack of ability then perpetuated that being sidelined.
so, if we think about it like this, let's say that that didn't happen. Do you think that you would have been a very different life situation by now?
I think there's a possibility, um, but I also wouldn't put it past myself that that alone didn't make the difference, and it's still possible that I wouldn't have gotten anywhere with it.
However, is that something you can truly count on being the case? Because if you think about it like this, if we don't go all out into something like a sport or whatever, anything athletic, whatever, if you don't really go all out, it's very difficult to assess whether it was just not meant to be or whether it
Right.
was actually just something else.
So I have a regret that I didn't go all out with ice hockey, especially because there were moments where I did something that no one thought was possible. There were very brief moments, and there weren't many of them, but
So you feel
I found that
regret. You
in
feel
my limited time actually playing hockey, I usually impressed people. So I feel like that kind of
I,
signifies the regret.
I want to interrupt for a moment here and just quickly address this. Does the feeling of regret lead to the situation that you're currently in where you do want to have something that you can show for because of the fact that you weren't able to do that before? As in, what I'm trying to say is that what is currently happening right now is in some ways as a result of that regret that you were feeling back then.
I think it is connected.
Yeah. And
I,
I guess a natural question then is just, is league just a replacement for ice hockey because you're either afraid or you doubt that you would be able to actually make it in that area?
um, I don't think I would describe it as a replacement, and there was a period of time where obviously I was doing both things. League and ice hockey were both parts of my life at one point. Um, So I don't think replacement is accurate.
Sure.
I
Okay.
think new opportunity is a better way of looking at it.
So
So I'd say it evolved from ice hockey to league rather than there being a replacement. I
so
see
I
them as equal.
right. So a need that I think that I hear from you is that there's a need to feel accomplished, to be in a position where you can look back and you can say that you did your absolute best and that you feel proud of yourself. Because apart from the external sort of gratification you get from other people, there is also obviously an internal component. And I think that internal component is very connected with that previous regret that you had. Because you feel perhaps you feel shame and maybe regret. Regret is one of the emotions, but maybe also shame or guilt that you didn't go all out when you could have. And that plagues
Yeah.
you. And it relates back to the current moment where you feel like you're in a similar situation again, where you feel like you are limited by certain aspects, either within the game or other areas, or
Yeah.
maybe because of things that are just remnants of the past. You feel similarly affected by those in a similar way to how you were too small to actually play ice hockey.
Yeah.
And because of this being a very similar situation, you are now in a sort of a fight and tug of war with yourself where like you're worried that it will play out the same way as it did in the past and you will end up regretting it again. And you really do not want to experience that same emotion and the same like shame and guilt that you felt before.
Yeah. I'm kind of like it's kind of already happening, if you know what I mean. Like, I mean, if you look at my
Sure. I understand.
ranked history,
I
I
understand that.
was able to perform better at a previous point, even without any knowledge of the stages. My highest performance is still above what I can do now. And it was at a point where I had, you know, the time, the drive, etc., to play the game very consistently, like 3+ games a day, without it being a problem for me. Uh,
Is there
and I
a
have the time to do that again, but I haven't figured out how to mentally be capable of that.
yeah, and that ergo goes back to what I was saying before, where you have to actually sort yourself out first before you can really become successful at anything. And obviously, sure, there are millionaires who are depressed. Obviously, like yeah, duh.
Yeah,
Obviously, there are cases like that, but those are very far and few between. And generally speaking, you need to sort yourself out first before being successful at really anything.
yeah. So like when I was at my peak in the game, I I burned out a little bit by playing too much at the start of a new season. I played like 10 games in one day. I played definitely too much. And then burned out a little bit, had a streak of bad games, and then basically fell off a cliff that I haven't been able to climb
It
back up.
it sounds to me. I'll go
So,
out on a limb here. And I'll
okay.
say that there there is a need for accepting yourself, and you aren't comfortable with accepting yourself given your past regret and shame.
Yeah,
And because you cannot let go of that regret and shame, you are also unable to let go of the fact that you're maybe not experiencing as much success as you want to. But because you are unable to let go of that past shame and regret, now you are sort of obsessed and like really frustrated whenever you experience failure within the game. And it severely impacts your emotional state. And that is because internally you have a need to feel accepted, to accept yourself and to acknowledge yourself. but you don't feel like
Yeah,
you deserve it, maybe, perhaps, because of the fact that you squandered your previous chance at achieving accomplishment in ice hockey. Does that sound accurate?
I think so.
You think so, or do you feel that it's accurate?
I it feels right.
It feels right.
It
Okay.
feels significant.
Yes. Okay. In that case, what is it that so we've addressed sort of like the underlying sort of source there, but what I want to know is what is it that's truly hindering you from being able to accept yourself as you are right now? Again, going back to what I said before, you can't become successful then become happy, because if you're not happy, then your work is going to be severely diminishing in terms of efficiency, because you're not going to be as motivated, or as you're not going to gain as many results from it, simply. So
I feel
I
like
What?
I feel like my enjoyment when playing League, I have a very hard time separating that from just winning.
And why is that? Is it because you feel like you are wasting your time if you're enjoying the game and you're not like progressing towards your goal?
I don't think I'm too worried about that. I think if in moments where I am really just enjoying League is when I make the most progress.
Right. So that is already like sort of a paradox right there, as you can see.
Yeah.
By the way, Strax, do you are you like going to be busy, or are you okay with staying longer, or do you feel like you need to go right now?
Actually, I was just called for the lunch, but this is like really interesting because there's a lot of similarities between me and Rex. Um, like, is it fine if I just stay in the call
Sure,
and record this
sure,
and then watch it later?
sure, absolutely. I mean, I'm
Yeah, I
recording.
guess.
I'm recording myself as well. So
Okay.
yeah,
Then if you can just send me
yeah, it's
the
fine.
whole thing. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
it's fine. No problem.
So thank you for your time.
Yeah, no
See you
problem. Have a good day. All right. So back to what we were saying. Um,
Okay.
that is a paradox, because as we've sort of described, because you enjoy yourself, it's also a lot easier to progress in whatever it is that you're
Yeah.
doing. And I think you can also relate to that when it comes to your work and at the company that you work at. You you obviously feel you're an important part of the company, so I think
Yeah.
that also improves your efficiency at work. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can already see how like frustration over your own performance is sort of counterintuitive. It runs counter to what it is that you actually want. It actually
Yes.
limits you. So I guess now the only thing that's really left, I suppose, is addressing the frustration. The frustration, as we've described before, I explained this earlier, if you recall, how anger
Yeah.
is a manifestation of unmet needs. However, the anger sort of covers up those unmet needs, and it covers up how you actually feel. Because let's say that you were angry at an injustice. The anger itself is just a manifestation of the sadness and the desire to live in a just world. So the anger itself is sort of a masking emotion that masks other deeper emotions that underlie it, if you get what I mean. And anger, you can think of anger as sort of like it's like a second party to who you are. So think of it like this: whenever you get angry, there is a part of you who actually feels sad and maybe other emotions, fear, anxiety, but that is not the part of you that is communicating right now. The part that is actually in control is actually the part of you that is angry. And so the
Yeah.
part of you that is like with the true emotions that you feel, those are no longer actually being expressed properly. And that creates a very big disconnect between what you actually feel and how you perceive the situation. So whenever you feel, for example, and is what I wanted to talk about earlier, but it's very complex to address this through text and DMs.
Yes.
When you feel angry at people to like flaming you or uh, like bragging about them maybe winning against you, what the anger that you feel isn't actually because of them. Weirdly enough, it's not because of them. It's a reaction to what they said or did, but it actually stems from unmet needs that are being expressed through anger instead of actually being expressed truthfully in an honest way.
Right. Like if I was purely enjoying myself playing the game, I would be immune to their comments because it doesn't matter.
And if your
You're doing your thing
desire,
and having fun.
yeah, and if your needs were being met, then I think you wouldn't even care. But
Yeah.
because
Like
those
it doesn't matter what you
needs,
say.
yeah, but because those needs exist within you, it is difficult for you to let go of the criticism and flame that you experience.
Yeah.
So let's maybe address that in that case. So, what needs do you express when you are angry and frustrated, and when you want to, for example, go into post game chat and like tell people to like fuck off or whatever? What are the actual emotions that you feel?
I guess disappointment in myself that I didn't perform better.
And why is it that you are disappointed in yourself?
I I feel like I feel like I'm capable of more. That my abilities are beyond my current performance,
And that is also why
but
you feel it's
I'm not able to
unfair.
reach that.
Yeah. And that's also why you feel it's unfair of people to judge you for your current performance because you feel like they
Yeah.
are not seeing the picture. But
But
perhaps that is something to do with yourself if you think about it. Because when you are frustrated at them not really seeing your full potential, I think that is a reflection of yourself because you feel that you can do a lot more, but you're not seeing it. And that is what
yeah,
creates the disappointment. But the disappointment stems from sort of I guess, need to accept yourself, but you don't feel like you can accept yourself unless you show good performance and good reason to actually justify it. And if I were to tell you that you are like you are expressing your potential no matter what outcome it is that you're experiencing. If I were to tell you that you would maybe intellectually understand it, but emotionally it wouldn't really connect because you don't really believe that. And I suppose then, what is it that hinders you right now from just accepting yourself as you are? And even in fact, commemorating your efforts, despite the fact that you maybe didn't perform as well as you had hoped. Or rather, as well as you would normally do. What is it that hinders you from being able to embrace yourself as you are?
I guess maybe it's a sense of going backwards. Like
So
I've
you
had the games where I performed extremely well, and because I've had those games, it's now forever more difficult to accept anything less than that, even if
and
that's completely unrealistic.
that can actually turn into a slippery slope where you continuously perform better and better, but then that creates more and more pressure. And it doesn't make it easier to perform better. It actually makes it
Yes.
harder to perform better.
I think that's part of why I, you know, exploded in fiery death the last time that I was really getting it. 'Cause the
What
pressure
is it?
built up as my rank increased, and eventually it exploded.
But what is it then that hinders you from? So if I think of it like this, let me think here. What is it that makes you think that you got it then, but you don't get it right now?
I think
Is there such a thing as
hmm,
getting something but then losing it if you really understood it?
I don't I don't think I lost it. Like I think it hasn't gone anywhere. Um, but I mean, so when important parts of the game started to click and I rapidly climbed, like I didn't change anything. I wasn't doing any cheese strats. I wasn't doing anything weird. I just figured something out and began to rapidly climb.
Yeah.
And that knowledge is still there. Um,
But what is it that
but
happened?
I don't know. Perhaps like the excitement of figuring it out helped drive me to follow it. And I guess maybe that's worn off by now. Now I'm frustrated when I don't do it rather than being excited that I'm starting to do it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so it's a transition where now that you have met that desire, now it's like a requirement at this point. It has like
Yeah,
upgraded itself from being a thing you enjoy to being now something you expect,
yeah,
which means that you're not grateful for it. Not at least not as much as you were before when you initially got it.
yeah,
And that shows that there's a sort of disconnect between how good you are and how good you think you are.
yeah. I think that
Relating it,
that is fair.
yeah, relating it back
Uh,
to what we talked about before of how like you don't really have perspective or a reference point to compare your life to someone who is maybe less fortunate because you've never really experienced that kind of maybe you've never been homeless, for example. You've never experienced
yeah,
those things like unfortunes, so you can't really relate to someone who has been homeless on a similar level. And in the
no,
same way, when you now expect a certain performance, you can't really relate back to your previous self where you were elated and happy to actually get it, because to you it's now a commodity instead of just like a super crazy thing.
yeah,
So that means that there's a lack of gratitude for yourself and for your own abilities, which relates back to again the point of like shame and guilt. It's that you're continuously expecting yourself to do better and better, and that's partly because you have very high expectations on yourself due to previous trauma and other things that maybe happened.
yeah. I remember when getting gold the first time was a big deal, and I was really excited about that.
Yeah.
Um, and then same thing when I got platinum for the first time. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then I immediately got plat again the next season.
Yeah.
and I still felt pretty awesome about it. But then I wasn't able to get platinum again, and now being gold feels like the worst thing ever.
Yeah. So if you were silver and you got gold, you would be grateful. But if you're plat and then you get gold, yeah, now it's all of a sudden it's less good because you've upgraded sort of the point of reference to something
Yeah.
higher. And that is
Yes.
unfortunately a part of the human condition. So one of the things that I think would be beneficial for you is to maybe think of those things that you can actually be grateful for. Gratitude journaling is like um, something a really good method for sort of giving yourself perspective on what you have.
Right. So I guess the fact that I got platinum 2 seasons in a row is far and beyond what most players will ever achieve.
Yeah,
So even having been there at all is something to be grateful for.
and it's tough. I believe it's very tough to think of that and like really connect with that sentiment because it's we are sort of our biggest judges. We are our own like critics when it comes to like how we generally live as humans. Like we generally tend to criticize ourselves really harshly. So
Yeah.
I think it's really difficult to adopt that mentality, but it's definitely something that I think is good and something to aspire to do. So that is the first thing. I think the gratitude will help you reframe things and actually build compassion for yourself, at least to some extent. Second thing I think will help you is to realize in your anger that the real reason why you feel this anger is because of something inside you that isn't being met. And you need to take some time to actually just address that.
Right.
In a similar way to how we've done this conversation right here, in a similar way to how I approached both talking to you and to Strax, I believe that you should also do the same with yourself. Because
Right.
you are the one person that knows yourself the best. And if you can't even have a good relationship with yourself, then obviously, how can you expect to have a good relationship with someone else? Or anyone, really.
I
So
feel
it
like I
all,
don't know how to have that conversation with myself.
perhaps that's like the first thing you should start at in that case.
Like
So
I can answer the questions you ask me, but I don't know how to ask myself those questions and honestly answer them.
the first thing is to really understand what a need is. So if we think about it like this, a need is not um, it's not something that anyone else is responsible for. It is just a desire for a particular thing. So for example, if I express, like I said before, I can express a need in a form of a judgment. For example, I could say to myself that why do I play this bad? Like, why am I playing so bad? I normally play really good. This is really bad. Me expressing that is actually really just expressing a need to feel good about myself and my own performance and to feel like I'm progressing. And when I don't feel that progress, I am sad and I am fearful that maybe it will continue. And that's why I punish myself by criticizing, because I'm fearful that it won't change unless I force myself to or punish myself for not doing it. I fear for my own aspirations that I may not even succeed if I don't do it. That is the source of the punishment. That is the reason why I verbally punish myself if I were to do that. Now the thing is, if you think about it like this, what reasons would you like yourself to have for doing the thing that you want yourself to do? Think of it like this. If I am a mother and I am trying to instill values into my kids, do I want my kids to clean the dishes to avoid punishment, or to do it because that helps build better practices, and like they themselves feel happy to do it because they know the reason why that is important, to have good hygiene and so on? Which reason do you feel is more desirable?
The second one.
Yeah, obviously. You wouldn't want someone to do it just because they want to avoid punishment. That runs counter to what it is that you actually want them to do. As a mother, you are not punishing them so that they are fearful of the punishment and therefore they will do what you ask them to do. The reason you are doing the punishment is because you want them to learn to do it for the right reasons. But the problem is that the punishment is masking the right reason. It is covering up the actual reasons that you want them to have to do the thing that you want them to do. And
Yeah.
that shows why punishment never actually works to change behavior long term.
As soon as those kids move out, they will suddenly
Not do it.
not be able to figure out how to get themselves to take care of themselves because
They were
they
always
lost the person that
forced
was
to do
getting them to
it.
do it.
Yes, they were
So
forced to do it.
even if they probably understand that they should be doing those things, they can't get themselves to do it.
Right. And if you think back to yourself, if you continuously verbally punish yourself and judge yourself for doing the wrong things that you think are wrong, then is that really gonna are you really gonna be doing those things for the right reasons that you want yourself to have? Are you really gonna be doing those things and changing your behavior in a good way for the long term?
Not really.
Not really, no. And so again, that goes back to my point. We have to first learn to accept ourselves as we are, to even, in fact, love ourselves. Obviously, not in a maybe narcissistic way. The narcissistic type of love is a very extreme version, and I think bastardized version of love. It's not that kind of love. The love that I'm describing is a love where you are able to understand that you are human, to embrace your humanity, to understand that
It's
you,
more like what you would feel towards friends or family.
yes, it's not extreme love that ignores errors and ignores faults and sees yourself as infallible. It is a love that embraces the fact that you are fallible, the fact that you can make errors in your judgment, the fact that you can make mistakes. It embraces that. You embrace yourself with all your imperfections instead of either ignoring them or exacerbating them. Instead of blowing up the mistakes to be unproportionally huge, when in reality they aren't that significant, you instead embrace yourself and accept the fact that you make mistakes, but you give yourself forgiveness. You give yourself the right to make mistakes, the right to be at fault, the right to do something that is wrong, but then end up learning from it. This goes back to what we were talking about before of how, like, although you may perceive an individual game as a single unique chance to perform good, that is not the measure of your performance as a human being. The measure of your performance is over the long term, and the long term is what's in your control. But it is when your mind is clouded by the negative emotions that you never let yourself truly feel out and understand. It's then that you actually end up losing that humanity, and you end up resenting yourself and not being empathetic towards your own needs. Because whenever you feel sad, whenever you feel angry or any emotion, those are needs either not being met or expressed in a way that's maybe not 100% accurate. Like with, for example, anger. Anger is a manifestation of unmet needs, but it's expressed in a very violent way. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It does. Okay. Does it feel right?
It feels right.
It feels right. Okay.
And so I guess to maybe apply this a little bit, um, it really doesn't. It's okay for me to make a mistake or even have a bad game because
Yeah.
I've already played thousands of games. I can play thousands more.
And
There are as many chances as I wish to give myself. So there's no reason to treat each one with so much finality.
and more importantly, I would like to address the paradoxical nature of your observations, because the way you explain it is that you perceive that other people are looking at you from this one game. But in that observation, you are forgetting the fact that you are in fact doing that yourself by limiting the scope towards this one game. Because when you have this one bad game, you yourself judge yourself off of that one game. You forget about all the good things that you did before. And that shows that
Yeah.
your anger towards other people isn't actually coming from those people. It stems from yourself. It is a reflection of what's going on inside you. It is you that is judging yourself off of that one game. And that's okay. But it also means you need to learn to see that as it is, and to embrace the fact that you have been angry, and you have been angry with yourself, and you have been basing it off of those isolated instances, because that is a part of being human. Going back to what we talked about before in DMs, if you remember how I said that all parts of you are worthy and equal. And the reason why I say that is because even though this anger is not desirable, it is a part of you that is expressing its need to be listened to. There are needs that are not being met, and those needs are the reason why the anger even exists in the first place. And it is in your continued pursuit in not listening to that anger that you are unable to resolve this conflict within yourself.
Yeah,
You need to, in
because
fact,
I viewed the anger as just, a spirit of anger that doesn't do anything useful. But
yeah,
that's not really true.
it's an
It's
expression
part
of
of me
pain.
that does want good things for me, but because it doesn't feel satisfied, it's angry.
Yes. And it expresses that in a way that's violent. And that's why it clouds our judgment. Because we don't actually see the true emotions and needs that are not being listened to or met. And in a similar way to how your dad expressed his need for you to be safe and to be in a good position in life, in a way that's criticizing and judging, your anger expresses needs in a way that judges yourself and makes you feel bad and criticizes yourself for your performance. But it all stems from wanting you, yourself to be in a good position. It stems from a place of love, but in in feeling that anger and relating that anger to actually there's something being wrong with you, you are now missing the point. And that stems from the fact that you need to actually have empathy with yourself. You need to give yourself time. You need to listen to yourself. You need to be open to receiving your own love and to see your own needs for what they are and to be able to actually understand what your needs actually are. This is often why this is this is why I usually explain a relationship with another human being as being more of a mod or an add-on to an already great game. But if the game itself, in this case your life, if it's not as good as it should be, or as it needs to be, or whatever, or as you would like it to be, then obviously the mod is maybe going to maybe patch up some things, but it's never going to fix the base game. That is just something that the developer of the game has to do himself. Now, obviously, what I want to say here is that actually, when I think about it, that analogy isn't actually very good. Now that I think about it further, but my, I think what I want to try to say is that there is, you are you are good and worthy as just as you are right now,
I
and you
see.
deserve love from yourself. That is what I wanted to say.
Right.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So yeah, how do you feel? Do you feel better? What do you have any questions?
I guess I feel neutral.
Okay.
So I feel like we uncovered something really significant.
Mhm.
Um, but I also still feel like I don't know where to go.
Okay. I think the first step is to, like I said before, gratitude journaling. That's a thing you could look into. You can
What does
look it
that
up.
mean?
Gratitude journaling means that you have a journal, and maybe every once in a while, every day, maybe you write down something that you're truly grateful for.
All right.
And it can go from something very mundane to something very deep, like you're grateful for coming out of a tough situation.
So it's just like the first thing that comes to mind, whatever that is.
Sure. Now, other than that, that's just one thing you can do. The other
Yes.
thing you can do is, like I said before, whenever you feel anger, understand that the anger is just an expression of unmet needs, and try to then, as best as you can, to listen to yourself in that anger or even frustration. It can be as early as frustration, which precedes anger. And try to listen to yourself. What is it that you are going through right now? So in this case, it's to regain empathy and understanding for yourself in those tough moments where you're like in the heat of anger or frustration or even irritation.
I guess I need to accept that I'm not going to be able to catch it before I get really angry. but I don't need to.
You don't need to
Even
because you're human.
after I'm angry, I can still
Yes.
talk to myself about what happened.
Yes. And that is still a success. It's still a success if you manage to, after your burst of anger, still then realize your needs and understand why you feel this way. That is still a success compared to not realizing it at all and then your needs continuing being unmet.
It's perhaps even worth sitting in base to think about it for a few moments.
Yeah.
It's not worth it to continue that game angry. It's much more worth it to miss a few moments of playing the game
Yeah.
to at least temper that, at least give that anger a chance.
Yeah. And
Then
again,
it'll be
the
much
anger
easier to continue the game and address it after.
the anger comes from yourself. That is the important thing. The important thing is to realize that no one else should take blame for the anger. The anger is coming from inside. It's just that other external things are triggering that to surface. It's a very
Yeah.
difficult realization, but it's very important. So in this case, you are responsible for your emotions, and it is okay. It is okay to feel, and it is okay to be angry. As long as you listen to yourself. Second, okay, so third thing. In everyday life, you will often address things in a certain way, either positive or negative sometimes. And you might address your anger as being a bad thing, or you might address yourself or things that you're doing as being bad. And it is important to then reframe that with positive language. So, for example, let's say you got angry, but you were able to listen to yourself and realize that you're experiencing this. That is still a positive thing. You can obviously you can frame it as a negative thing that, oh, it happened and the anger made me maybe lose the game or increase my chances of losing. Or you could phrase it in a positive light and say, the fact that I felt the anger now means I was able to figure out something about myself and I was able to hear what I was feeling. And that is a positive way of looking at it. So that is more of sort of a mental shift and an active sort of effort in trying to reframe things from being negatives to positives or looking at the positive side of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does it feel right or do you feel confused?
Hmm.
It is not something, it's not
Hard to
a,
say.
okay, so to explain it, mindset is something that doesn't really like, it's not something you do with your hands. It's not something that's physical. It's very spiritual and mental. And that may be perhaps what's confusing about it, because it's not something you actually do, if that makes sense. It's something that you just feel and you try to tap into. So it's a lot more like spiritual and mental rather than actually practical and like hands-on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I remember. I I'm a very like mechanical type of person. Like
Yeah.
I really think of things as discrete actions.
And perhaps that can be something you could improve on, because that is just an identity that you are holding on to. But as we all know, humans can change and have a capacity for change. So you may just as well become a very open and very free flowing thinker in the future. Or you may be like an academic person. Again, it depends on how you change. But
I I don't think I don't think that aspect of me even has to change. I think just
sure,
the machine needs different parts.
yeah, you need to,
I don't think the discrete way of looking at it is flawed. I just think I need to expand the capabilities of that.
yeah. Again,
Just things.
a lot of the
Yeah.
things that I'm expressing here aren't necessarily actions. They're more so
Yeah.
just ways of thinking and changing your mind. And that may be why it's a bit confusing because you maybe like to have actionable items that you can do
Yeah.
and like you can like definitively say when and where you should do it. But obviously that's very difficult for me to explain to you. There are so many like numerous situations where this is applicable. And obviously that would be very time consuming to go through, like all the possible situations that may relate to you and your situation. So a lot of the advice here I give is very um, it's not like practical. It's more so just like changing the way you think, that sort of stuff. And that's not something that changes very fast. It may take time, but I think
Yeah.
it's worth
So
looking into.
the the discrete component of it is the moments where I feel these strong emotions,
Yeah,
in particular the anger.
yeah.
Um, and that
It
that is my cue to
yes,
respond to it.
and even not just then. It can also be when you feel sad or when you feel
Yeah.
any other type of emotion. Those are all cues. Like whenever you feel anything, the one thing you shouldn't do is to not listen to it. Sometimes you will just feel type of way and you need to give yourself the chance to feel it out entirely. Otherwise you will grow resentful of yourself because you never listen to your own feelings.
Or even if it's something as simple as like I have a meal and it's something I haven't tried before and it tastes really good, then I should literally just take a moment to be like, I enjoyed having this unique meal.
Yeah, being present basically. A lot of the pain that we experience comes from the past and the future, so another another tip I can give is to simply just meditate and build a habit of being more present because then you can minimize the amount of suffering. And then it also reduces overthinking because then you don't need to think about the past or the future. You just stay present and enjoy the moment, basically. Again, very, very esoteric, but I think you understand like it's difficult to give a lot of practical like advice other than just like
It,
meditating. Yeah. Anything else, or do you feel like those are like? Do you think that is satisfying? I think I've given you a lot of methods and approaches you can take now to actually work on this.
yeah, I feel better about this.
Yeah. Another thing you can do, in fact, you don't even have to do gratitude journal. You can also do journaling just about how you feel, journaling about your experiences in life. Journaling is a way to sort of jot down your thoughts and feelings. And that can also give you some perspective because then you can actually visually see how you feel and what you think. And that can all,
I tend, whenever I have like a conversation with myself, it's all in my head. It never gets written down.
And I think that is actually something you can work on, because then you can write it down and then it will be a lot more clear. Don't you think?
right? And I'll be able to look back at it.
Yeah.
It won't just disappear the moment it's happened.
Yes. All right, but
Okay.
is that is that satisfying, or is there anything else you want to ask?
I think that's I think I'm good for now.
Okay, awesome. Have a good day, and I'll see you later.
Thanks. You as well.
Yes. Bye bye.
Bye.